There we go. We're at Penn's Cave. We're going to go down the trail here to where the boats are to go into the cave. It's chilly out here today. Well, I think it's down here. I can see it. Wow, really nice. I guess the boats are here. Ah, the legend. Legend of there. A legend of Penn's Cave. Very cool. Whoa, now it gets steep. Very cool. Look at the rocks. Get down these steps. Wow. Check that out. That's kind of cool.
Over the edge of the boat. That includes fingers, cameras, wallets, hats. These boats are really heavy, especially when they're fully loaded. We do bump into the walls in certain spots. You don't want to pinch your fingers. I did it last summer and I really regret it. And then just don't touch anything. Well, this time of year it's not that big of a problem because everything's cold. But we have a lot of oils and acids in our skin, and you don't want to get any on the formations because you can actually permanently damage them, unfortunately. Yeah, you could spread down a little bit. It's just if everybody sits on that end of the boat, the motor actually isn't in the water down here, so it's a little bit of an issue. So all the water for Penn's Cave actually comes out of the wall behind you on the left. It's about 11 million gallons a day on average that comes out of that wall. It's all spring-fed aquifer water. We have several types of formations in the cave. The ones that hang from the ceiling, they're called stalactites. That's easy, they hang tight to the ceiling. The ones that grow up from the ground are called stalagmites. They might reach the ceiling one day. When they grow together, they form a column. And that one's super easy, because that's what we call them. There's a lot of bad dad jokes, so. Now I finally have a kid of my own, so I can actually use them. So we've been doing tours down here for about 140 years, since 1885. When we first started doing tours, we had everybody use their imaginations, because we didn't really know a whole lot about science and history. Thankfully, we've learned a little bit in 140 years, but we still ask people to use their imaginations. Use your imagination. I have a dragon coming out of the wall right here. And then right behind that is our tallest stalagmite in the cave, the Statue of Liberty. Now, it may look like she's leaning. That's because she is. She actually formed on top of a cave canopy thousands of years ago. Then she got so heavy, she actually crushed it and regrew at that angle. But you don't have to worry, she hasn't moved in thousands of years, so she's not going to tip over on us.
Hey, some fish.
Yeah, I don't know what that one's doing.
Wow.
Yeah, speaking of fish and animals, I always like to warn people, we do have trout in here. I'm not sure if you saw them back at the dock or not. They're rainbow trout, brook and brown. The rainbow ones have started swimming through the cave, and they like to jump out of the water and catch the bugs that are in the spotlights. So if you see anything jump out of the water or land in the water behind you and splash, it's just a fish. You don't have to worry. Really freaks people out if you don't tell them that. And then we also do get bats in here. They've started to work their way back in the caves. It's getting colder outside. They're little brown bats. They're like the size of a chicken nugget, roughly. But if you see something flying around in the spotlights, that's what they are. They don't bother anybody. They're actually more irritated that we're in here than anything. It just looks like somebody kind of glued fur all over the ceiling. Now, scientists believe the cave is somewhere between 3 to 5 million years old. Up until the last ice age, the water is actually all the way up to the ceiling. And then as the ice age ended, the water table in the area began to gradually drop. It dropped all the way down to where we're currently floating right now. Obviously, that allows us to do boat tours. If anybody's been on any other cave tours, you probably walk through a portion of it or the majority of it. That's because those are dry caves, in theory. There's no cave that's actually dry. But that just means the water table is below the bottom of the cave, so I'll let you do that. Did you make it dripped on you?
Yeah, I did.
I was saying, it's not too bad this time of year. Springtime, I tell people to bring a raincoat because it's like raining underground all the time. But all the water that will drip on you is actually coming from our stalactites on the ceiling. All these little dots are water droplets. It's actually a mixture of rainwater and groundwater from up above. It goes down through the rocks and the mud and it picks up minerals. Gets to the end of the stalactite, deposits those minerals, and then it drips. If you're lucky enough, it'll hit you in the forehead. We call that a cave kiss. I usually tell people to buy a lottery ticket. It has to hit you in the forehead though. If it hits you anywhere else, it doesn't count. Now, I know I told you guys to keep your fingers in the boat, but if you guys want, you can break a roll and feel how cold the water is. We're not really near anything, so you're not gonna pinch your fingers. You can also see the bottom. We're only in probably about 3 feet of water right now. I'll do it on this side too. Back at the dock was actually the deepest point. It was about like 15 or 16 feet, but the whole rest of the cave, once we got past that first corner, is only 2 to 5 feet. You can see the bottom the whole time. Now, the cave is primarily made of limestone. That's this grayish rock. Inside the limestone, you get a lot of different elements, but one of the most common ones you'll see here is iron. When you mix iron, oxygen, and water, you get iron oxide, rust. That's where we get all these red and orange colors from. Now, just above the rust, you guys probably noticed a couple holes in the ceiling. Those are actually holes from ancient whirlpools from when the water was all the way up to the ceiling. Whirlpools would form and they would carve holes into the rock over time, kind of like a drill bit almost. Does anybody have any? Now, I did forget to mention, I like to explain the noises in the boat before you hear them in the dark and get nervous. Used to say it for kids, but I've had a lot of adults freak out recently, so I just say it for everybody now. The only way I could slow us down and stop is if I floor it in the opposite direction really quick. That's what a big splash noise is. And we are dragging a metal anchor behind us, and sometimes it bounces off rocks and makes scary monster noises. It's not a monster, I promise. It's just the anchor. Now, if anybody's gone out west or heard of the Garden of the Gods National Park out in Colorado.
Yeah.
This is our Pennsylvania pint-sized version of it. Slightly smaller. Some people say it kind of looks like a city on a hill, maybe like Philly or Pittsburgh. Now, all of our formations are imagination formations. Obviously, that's subjective. So if you see any cool ones, feel free to yell it out. Or if you just see a bunch of rocks and think I'm crazy, that's also fair. To me, this formation off to the right up here, it always kind of looked like maybe an eagle or an owl watching us. Keep going to the left, we have this big stalactite on the ceiling. It's pointing down to a stalagmite. I always thought the stalagmite looked like the guy from Boston Fish Sticks, the Gordon's Fisherman. Keep going to the left, we have this big column, and right on the other side, there's a little boy chasing his cow over a bridge. Or you may just see a bunch of rocks, that's totally fair. Obviously, I don't get outside a lot, I don't have a great tan. So earlier I mentioned we would get holes in the ceiling from whirlpools. A whirlpool made this hole above our head and exposed this mineral. Shiny, kind of looks like gold. It's actually iron pyrite. Some of you might know it as fool's gold. The reason it's called that is it's extremely light compared to gold, so it was very obvious it wasn't real gold when it was dug up. The only people that believed it were the fools, so that's why they call it fool's gold. Keep going left, we got more whirlpool holes with more iron pyrite. And right in front of us, we have this big formation. It kind of looks like a bird made a mess, or maybe we spilled paint and never cleaned it up. It's actually called a flowstone. It's formed by water flowing over the rock over thousands of years and depositing minerals. The white is the calcium, the red is the iron. It's kind of hard to tell. There is green in there. That's a bit of a trick question. A lot of people think it's copper. It's actually moss and algae from our lights. That's why when we came in here, I had to turn the lights on. It's so humid down here. If I left the lights on 24/7, the whole inside of the cave would be covered in moss and algae. Plus our power bill would get really high. I'd probably get
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions?
Nope.
So, as we go into the next room, you probably saw the giant rock in front of us. We're not gonna hit the rock, but we are gonna go through that little crack in the wall to the right-hand side. It's a very tight squeeze. We only have a couple inches on either side, so please keep everything inside of the boat. And everybody on this side of the boat, you're gonna have to do some ducking today. We have free headache rock on the right-hand side of the boat, so if you're not paying attention, it will give you a free headache, I promise. So as we're going through, try to duck one at a time as much as you can. It's not too bad with this many people, but if you guys all lean over at one time, you actually rock the entire boat and bounce us off the wall behind us, and it scares everybody. So we're gonna try to avoid that. I forgot to say that one time I had 22 Girl Scouts. That was rough. Oh yeah, I don't know how I got lured into that. All their parents are like, no, they can go together. Sure.
Wow. Alright, squeeze in there? Wow.
Yeah, it's the reason these boats are a weird width. It's also why there's a lot of red paint on the wall.
Yeah, I see that. Lots of red paint. Hide your heads.
It's not bad now, but in springtime when the water is about a foot higher than this, it's a very tight squeeze. Now, if you look off to the left, there's a big formation up there. It kind of looks like an owl or maybe a big cat's watching us. And then right in the middle of the room, that's our local legend, the Nittany Lion. And then keep going to the left, depending on how old you are. It's either Buddha, Jabba the Hutt, or Shrek. There's so many kids that don't know Star Wars, it makes me sad. Anyways, this is the tallest room in Penn's cave. It's about 55 to 60 feet to the ceiling at the highest point. And then when you get to the ceiling, it's roughly another 35 feet before you actually get to the surface. That's the thinnest point of the cave. I'll show you later on. The thickest point's about 100 feet below the surface, roughly. This was also the first room discovered. 1795, there was a preacher named James Martin. He was walking around on the surface, and he found a 5-foot hole in the ground. He decided to crawl down that hole and explore it. He actually popped out about 100 feet behind our line. You can still see the hole in the wall back there. And he started exploring down here. He actually discovered two things. One, the cave's full of water, so he's gonna need a boat or a raft. And two, he found Native American artifacts like arrowheads, charcoal from fire, beads, things like that. So he realized the local tribe, the Seneca tribe, actually discovered this centuries before. They just kept it as a secret from the Europeans. At that point in history, the Native Americans and the Europeans were not on the best of speaking terms, so they didn't really want to give away their secrets. Well, obviously James Martin didn't keep it a secret, hence why we're all down here. He went back out and started telling a bunch of people about what he found, and they decided to bring materials back in and start building rafts. They actually launched the rafts roughly about here, and they started to explore the cave. They went back the direction we just came from. They found the second natural entrance, the big hole in the ground everybody walked down. Now in those days it was covered by a lot of vegetation and trees, so it wasn't as obvious as it is today. Speaking of not obvious, you guys actually probably drove right by the first natural entrance, had no idea. The road that you drove in on is pretty much right above our heads. And then in the back of the parking lot, there's a big Pepsi machine. You walk down the depression behind it in the back left-hand corner, there's a fenced off area. That's what a 5-foot hole in the ground is. Still there today, still an active tunnel. We just have the fence to keep the teenagers and the little animals out. Now, if you look off the right-hand side, though, you have all these little white formations. They kind of look like icicles. Well, like I said earlier, nothing freezes down here anymore because it's always like 50 to 52 degrees roughly. They're actually called soda straw formations. They're hollow on the inside like straws. Now, most of our formations are solid, so the water goes around the outside, then off the tip. These, the water goes down the center and off the tip. They are deceiving, they do look like icicles, and they are as delicate as an icicle, so in theory you could snap one off. Only problem with that is they take about 100 to 200 years to grow an inch. So if you broke it, you're never going to be alive to see it recover, unfortunately. Now, speaking of broken, there's a lot of broken things in this room. The big formation on the wall behind me, we actually gave it a name, we call it the Chimes, because when they first started doing tours down here, they had to use rowboats and torches and lanterns and things like that. One of the tour guides, either on purpose or on accident, we don't really know, smacked that rock with a wooden oar. It actually rang out like a bell and it echoed all through the cave. So I thought it was a really fun thing to do. So every tour from 1885 to about the 1970s that came through here hit that poor rock with a wooden stick or an oar or something like that. And as you'll see in a second, as we go underneath it has a bunch of hollow passages up inside it, and they did a ton of damage to it. They actually cracked the vast majority of the passages inside it, and then they came in one day in the 70s and hit it and didn't make noise anymore. They actually cracked the final hollow passage inside it. A lot of things they did back in the day did do a significant amount of damage to the cave. They didn't mean to, they just really didn't know any better, or they found out too late, unfortunately. Does anybody have any questions?
Did Indians actually live in here, or just
No.
probably just?
They just came in, we think. Unfortunately, they didn't really like us because we stole their cave.
Sure.
They came, we think they either used it for religious ceremonies or they came in here to warm up in the wintertime, because they did find quite a few fires in here. And if it's always 50 and you have a fire, you get it to probably like 60 or 70 in here pretty quick. Yeah, you can actually drink this water. I mean, we do have fish in it right now, so I don't really recommend it. But the original farmer that owned this land for about 100 years, he only did private tours down here for like family and friends, because this was his drinking water, and he was worried people were going to pollute his drinking water. Any other questions? So we're going to go right underneath the chime, so if you're on my side, just watch your heads. Some people say it kind of looks like a beehive or maybe like coral. Yeah, no, the original farmer that owned this, he passed away in like 1882, I believe. And his two sons were the ones that wanted to do tours down here. So they're the ones that built the hotel up in the parking lot and started doing like commercial tours down here.
So that big building was a hotel?
Yeah, when you drove in the parking lot, yeah, that was a hotel at one point. Now, up above us, we have a curtain formation. Kind of looks like a shower curtain almost. But like I said earlier, we get roughly between 800 to 1,000 brown bass that hibernate in the cave with us in the winter time. But they like to hang out in our formations because it protects them from the screech owl that also lives in the cave in the winter, and he likes to eat little brown bats. He's pretty small. He's probably 10 inches to maybe a foot tall. Made this hole in the ceiling. When you get right about here, you realize it roughly looks like a shape of a heart. That's one reason we call the heart of Penn's cave. The other reason is we've actually had a lot of couples either get engaged or married under this in the past couple of years. I know it sounds a little different. They were caving couples. I don't think the average wife would be too excited about it, but these wives were pretty excited at the time. There's our little gummy bear formation. You can tell it still gets water on it because all the wet marks. The formations next to it are called dead formations. You can tell they have like a different texture. They're all dried out, and that's because there's no water on them anymore, so they'll never get any bigger. All of our formations have to have water on them at some point throughout the year to be considered alive and growing. Now, this is the deepest portion of the cave. It's about 100 feet below the surface, roughly. And right above that's actually our herd of bison. They're about 1,000 to 2,000 pounds a piece, depending if it's a male or a female. When you guys drove in today, there was a fence across from the parking lot that said no pets. That's roughly where we are right now. They're a little temperamental, so we try not to set them off. Now, this is the closest we're actually going to get to the natural ceiling. And you guys may see stuff, it almost looks like popcorn chicken on the ceiling. It's actually magnesium, the flammable metal. Rumors are early tour guides actually used to snap this stuff off the ceilings and the walls and use it to light their torches back in the day. Thankfully, we don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But right next to that, we have this big strip of little formations. They look kind of funny, they got flat bottoms to them. That's because before we had the man-made exit at the other end, the cave used to flood all the way up to the ceiling, and then logs and branches would come in and snap the tips off of all of these. There's a couple small ones down here at the end that have a little bit of new growth, that little tip. But that's all that's grown since 1927. So it kind of shows you how slow these really grow. Back when we had used torches light already, we used to throw our torches on ledges like this one. Only problem with that is that entire ledge used to be crystal white with minerals below it. Then all the years of tours and torches being thrown up there left a lot of soot and ash behind, and actually permanently stained the formation underneath it. It's just another example of them doing damage, and they didn't realize it until it was too late, unfortunately. You can also see some more soot and ash just on the formations. That's just from what was in the air that settled. So it kind of shows you the air quality wasn't the best down here at that point. Off to the left, we got a couple smaller soapstones. I always thought this one kind of looked like the Canadian side of Niagara Falls. And then there's the New York side right above it. Now, there's a hole above the New York side. When we get really heavy rains, water will actually come gushing out of that hole. It kind of looks like a fire hose almost.
Wow.
But the cave kind of acts like a pressure release for the groundwater in the area, which sounds cool now, but back in the day before they had a man-made exit, you had to be really careful because you could actually get trapped in the center of the cave if the cave flooded too quickly. But now the water pours over the rock waterfall. It actually pours over the tail of my favorite formation here, our Loch Ness Monster. Here's his tail. Big body, and his little tiny head. He's even got a little flipper. Now, these are actually called cave canopies. They kind of look like they're floating, but there was actually a mud bank underneath it originally, and that's how it formed. And then over time, the mud bank was slowly washed away. They look delicate, but they're actually extremely strong.
There's a fish.
Yeah, the fish are everywhere.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it's just.
Off the right hand side, we got a shark's fin sticking out of the ceiling. And it looks like the shark just had lunch. It's not as bright now because it hasn't really been raining, but that's from the rust in the rock, or the iron in the rock turning to rust. It looks like blood almost. So earlier I mentioned the cave used to flood up to that low portion we went through. That's because originally all the water in the cave had to exit on the right-hand side over here. Just about here, right below the water line, there's a large crack. It's about like 8 or 9 inches tall. The water would go out that crack through about 75 feet of solid rock and pop up outside. That used to be the head of Penn's Creek. Well, in 1925, they got tired of letting the cave flood all the time, because sometimes it would take a week for the water to go back down. So 1925 and 1927, they built this man-made exit down here. It goes out to a small lake with a dam, and we use the dam to control the water level now. We're actually going to go out there and turn around in a minute. Now, this is the last room in the cave. We actually call it the column room, because there's several large columns. This one's about 13 to 14 feet tall, roughly. Now, they take somewhere between 300 to 500 years to grow an inch. So in terms of a year, that's about the thickness of a sheet of paper, roughly. Back right in the corner, a couple smaller columns. A lot of people say look like Easter Island heads. And then right behind them, there's a big hole in the wall. It's kind of hard to tell. It leads to my favorite room in the cave. It's called the Round Room. It's a perfectly circular room made by an ancient whirlpool. And it actually sanded the walls completely smooth and exposed a ton of minerals that you wouldn't normally see. It's pretty cool.
So you've been up there?
Yeah, we get to go up there like twice a year to do maintenance. You can't really tell, but way up in the corner, there's actually a hole in the ceiling. That's where they ran the wires in. But squirrels like our wires. They like to chew all the insulation off our wires. Don't know why, but they do. So twice a year we have to go up and replace a bunch of wires.
Who has the expertise to know what to do? I mean, do you have scientists? Do you have
Oh yeah, like
Penn State?
I would say. I mean, Marty's been here since the 80s, but Penn State comes here a lot. The professors, they kind of, I don't want to say free reign down here, but they kind of do. They usually bring their classes here, and then if they notice something, they'll like tell us, or like we have the one on speed dial pretty much. We can call them and ask them questions and stuff. He's part of their geology department, but they also have like a huge caving. We're just telling you, male beavers, they're fat, but they can get up to 100 pounds.
So this was all carved out?
Excuse me. Yeah, this was all man-made. In here? No, it's actually, you'll notice the walls are like a weird texture. It's actually gunite, same stuff they used to use in old concrete pools. That's because they were worried about...
Oh.
There's a big rock underneath the water back there and the anchor chain flooded.
But we're going to go.
But yeah, they were worried about rocks falling on people, so they coated the whole inside of the tunnel with gunite to keep it from falling. But we've actually had earthquakes here, and they haven't done anything. The cave's actually really structurally sound. Yeah, we've had, I think the biggest one was like a 3.1 or 3.2, something like that. But you can't even tell when you're underground. But yeah, from that wall back to the room we were just in, that was all hand dug. They actually tried using blasting, but unfortunately started sending shockwaves through the cave and doing some damage. So they literally had to use like pickaxes and chisels and break the rock apart. But from that wall, the kind of where it V's right here, that was all blasting and machinery, because the ground level used to be way up there. So they had to dig all the way down to where we're sitting right now. It always amazed me. They did it in like, this whole project was only about 2.5 years. So I don't know how they did it that quick, but 1925 is when they started. They finished basically halfway through the 1927. But that one boss always jokes, they didn't really have OSHA or EPA or anything back then.
Yeah.
So they got to do a lot of stuff we don't get to do nowadays. So all the water for the cave actually used to exit right here on the right-hand side. You can still see all the cracks below the water line. This whole area right here, from here to the dam, used to